Well, being 8 o'clock in the morning and having to sit through a boring cybersecurity class, I don't see nearly as much coffee as I think you guys are going to need to stay awake here. So, this is somewhat of a mandatory thing, but for some people, it really helps them out. I've had a couple people over the years come back and say that some of their relatives got caught in something that caused some identity theft, and they took a lot of this stuff personally. So in addition to the stuff that you'll learn today to protect the city, which is one of the main things, everything that we're talking about really has an application for your personal life. Everybody knows when you go into your bank account, you have to put in multi-factor authentication. And so all those things really have a very direct application to your personal life. So hopefully it'll have a little meaning anyway. But the purpose of the training is to hopefully make you aware that it really is a battlefield out there. There's a lot of hidden things going on that are just bubbling at the surface. This morning, literally this morning, there was a headline that talked about that they discovered that China has been in a lot of municipalities and waterworks and some of our utilities for the last 5 years, just waiting for when we had that big conflict. So there's just a lot of things steaming under. We'll talk about a few of them, but hopefully this awareness will give you a purpose for maybe paying attention to some of the things that Joe and the folks at Neenah want you to do. I'm just going to talk about a few things. I'm going to talk about the current landscape because the things that happen in the cyber world change regularly. Some of this stuff is old, that's been around for a while, but there's some new stuff here that I think is interesting as it applies to what you do and the things that are out there in your everyday life. And then we'll talk about how attackers try to trick you and some of the ways that you can defend against it and keep the city safe. So the first thing that I already mentioned is that cyber tactics are always changing. It's like whack-a-mole. As soon as you find one way to stop an attacker, they find another way to go about it. So part of this is not only a refresher, but it's to keep up on some of the latest and greatest things. And I just want to highlight a few of the kind of current concerns that are out there. The first one is not surprising. I mean, that's been around for a long time. Attackers have been trying to get to data. They can use that data to make money and monetize it and to extort things and whatnot. So that's always been a big deal, and it still is one of the top concerns. But here's a couple new ones. There's been quite an increase in automobile hacking. And people say, well, what are they going to do? Stop my spark plug from working or open my doors? Some of that's kind of true, but actually the big part is your phone is connected to that device in most cases, right? Your phone is one of the big features of some of the new electronics that are in cars so that you can do everything, now in your car. And we're going to find that your phone is a gateway to a lot of things. And, a lot of times people say, well, my phone doesn't have anything on it. I got a couple contacts. Yeah, but you might connect to your city email box. You might connect to, your bank. It's the connection that you have on your phone is what makes automobile theft so attractive for a lot of folks. Obviously, stealing the car sometimes is a benefit, but a lot of data folks are interested in your connections. You might have heard of artificial intelligence. A lot of people have heard it well enough, but really not quite sure what it does. You probably have maybe seen in some of the headlines over the last year that a variety of celebrities have been complaining that their voice has been captured by AI and now used to kind of create messages for advertisements or other things that they never did. Somebody just recorded their voice long enough to get a pattern, and then they can use it to create their own, dialogue using that voice. So that's one way AI is being used in a very deceptive mode for impersonating, whether it's audio or video. But another thing is that it's super, super smart and fast. And so, our computers have always been fast, relatively speaking, in our modern age. But the ability to make decisions and figure things out and find patterns is exponentially bigger with AI. And so to find vulnerabilities in networks just goes super fast. And so AI has started to become a problem already, but it's expected to be probably one of the biggest problems that we'll have in the next couple of years for sure. Mobile has always been a target, but it's becoming more and more of a target for people who are looking for, again, not so much for things on your phone, but the connections you have. I'm going to show you a hack a little bit later where just taking a regular person's credentials. Let's just say that you say, I'm not really worried about my laptop because I have nothing on it. I schedule a few things, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to show how a hacker can, within minutes, escalate it to have the privileges of somebody like Joe if Joe has worked on his computer over time. So that's the same with the phone. It's the connections that are very important. Everybody has probably heard of cloud. Your office tools maybe have gone to the cloud. Instead of using tools that were on your network, they're now in the cloud, Office 365, your email and media, things like that. And so the attackers are really going after cloud infrastructure. And I'm not going to go through every one here, but the last one I think is interesting is the IoT, which is the Internet of Things. It's, some of you may have heard or already have a light bulb switch that is connected to the internet so that from a distance you can turn on and off your lights or monitor your thermostat or something like that. Well, you can imagine that those are huge targets for folks where, again, they can take over different things. And again, it's not so much to maybe get in the house. I mean, there is the traditional kind of criminality of having access to stuff. But the more sophisticated attacks are interested in, that light bulb switch is on the same network as your computer, as your phone. And it's getting into that has become a real problem for folks. And maybe, I guess maybe the last one I want to linger on is number 9, state-sponsored cyber warfare. Who the heck in China, Russia, North Korea, Iran is going to worry about us here in Neenah or Menasha? And the answer is they probably don't know about you guys and us here in this part of the world. But they're still very present in what you're doing. And it's a matter of you being what's called collateral damage. About 3 years ago, there was a huge attack on a bunch of our federal agencies, the State Department, the IRS, and a bunch of others. It was using a tool called, not a tool, but it was a product that was commercially available called SolarWinds. And SolarWinds just happened to be a tool that those government agencies used for their maintenance of the IT environment. And so the attackers built an attack to get to those groups. That was their target, and they got in through this commercial product. Well, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other companies actually used that same product and got the same kind of an attack. They weren't the target, they were just the collateral damage. And so whether it's through Microsoft, a couple months after the SolarWinds, there was a huge Microsoft thing. And if you guys were paying attention or saw anything, Microsoft had attackers into the base of their code for over a year. They were in that code, and they were able to monitor and do reconnaissance within the Microsoft environment. And over a year later, they hit it, and it was huge. We had tons of our customers get attacked. Nobody was attacking them in Neenah, but they were attacking, the broader involvement. Those were Russian hackers that were trying to get into federal agencies as well, and people in Neenah, people in all over the country were just collateral damage. And the reason why that's significant is, we used to fight the local hackers, the high school kid who, would hack away and do something, and that was kind of the local problem for a long time. And everybody can understand how smart, at least in theory, our NSA and CIA and those intelligence agencies are. Well, when it comes to that level of sophistication, it's widely accepted that China and Russia and others have roughly that same capability. Hopefully we're a step or two ahead, but they're right behind. They're in that same league of skill level. And so in years past, they used to be doing their thing against the geopolitical targets, that was going on, and the local hackers were touching us. Well, now those large hackers have converted their wares, their capabilities, ransomware and whatever, and they sell it just like Office 365. If you want to join Office 365 now, you go to a web portal, you sign up, and you get these massive tools that Microsoft has created for us. it's a very big thing now to have what's called ransomware as a service. These highly dangerous tools are now made available to local folks. And these local folks, the way that they become part of this is they can download, they can sign up to get the service, and the service will provide a 1-800 number, technical support. They will provide the payload, a world-class ransomware virus. They will accept the bitcoins, and basically all they have to do is take this code, put it on a flash drive, and leave it around offices and whatnot. So now you got a local presence, basically delivering in conjunction with world-class cyber attackers this virus that's deadly. And that's how that cyber warfare that used to be off over here, way over there, that we didn't really think too much about here locally, is now starting to get merged in. So between the collateral damage, because the internet's all over the place, and how local folks can basically sign up, local criminals can sign up to become very credible attackers, that's what number 9 is all about. So I think it's important to understand, because I think a lot of people, don't realize how, if the CIA or the NSA wanted to get into your computer or steal information, they can pretty much do that. Microsoft can't stop them. Just about every large company that we think is the best at providing, cyber protections, they can't stop them. Everybody's been hacked for the most part. Our CIA, you guys maybe heard that a couple years ago, they lost a whole bunch of data. They lost a bunch of source code for some of their bugs and whatnot. So real problem, and it's making its way down to our doorsteps. Just to give you an idea how big this is, if you look at how much money's made, last year $11.5 trillion was made in cybercrime. That's through ransomware, identity theft, etc. In just a few more years, 2027, 3 years or so down the road, it's expected to be $23 trillion. Our national debt's like 30 trillion or something like that. So if you want to know why crime is so big, it's because of the money. There's not too many industries in the world that make as much money as cybercrime right now. So that's what gives the motivation for folks to do it. And I mentioned those state sponsors. They do it for political reasons. They try to undermine us. We try to undermine them. But right below them are organized crime. And when I say organized crime, they actually recruit right alongside the biggest companies, the best and brightest minds. Trillions of dollars at stake. And so the organized crime groups are the ones that mop up this collateral damage, if you will, and they do it to monetize stuff. The nation states are in it for political reasons and disruption, and the organized crime is in it for money. And you can see it's a lot of money. Another thing, maybe just to help put in perspective how important this is, the World Economic Forum listed what it thinks are the global risk for 2024. About number 6 or so or whatever is cyber attacks, 39%. And you say, oh, okay, that's fine. But if you notice a few down from there, there is outbreak of armed conflict. Now, I don't know if you look at the news, we got stuff going on in Ukraine, the Middle East. Everybody's talking about Taiwan. So there's a lot of real armed conflict going on already, and they're saying that that's still below where cybercrime is. So I'm just trying to put in perspective how big this is, because I think most of us probably have heard the news of cities or companies that got disrupted, but maybe not aware of how prevalent it really is. There's a bunch of statistics on there. The only one that I want to point out is that upper right one. 4,000 attacks per second are being blocked with this. It is that prevalent trying to get in to your environment. It only takes one mistake by an individual to allow one of these attacks to make its way in. And we'll talk more about that in a second. All right, so that whole thing was meant to just kind of emphasize that this really is a battlefield. It's got all of the players and all of the consequences of a battlefield. And you're in the middle of it. There are attackers, undoubtedly. I'm sure Joe can provide statistics that Neenah has been attacked. In some cases successfully on a couple occasions, and in other cases he doesn't have to. You guys don't see it because he's blocked it. The IT equipment has blocked it. And so let's just say that Joe, which I know he does, has all the equipment and all of the configurations and all the practices to stop these attackers from getting in to the city information, and then shutting down services, making your network unavailable. And obviously that would cause disruption to different city services. But it only takes one person, you, each one of you, me, any individual, to click on something one time, and it bypasses everything that Joe's done and IT has done. And that's kind of why we're here, is to have you make sure you understand that you're a human firewall, just like Joe's got technical firewalls for digital stuff coming in. And we'll see in a minute that 90% of all ransomware gets in because you, me, we click on something that we're not supposed to, and it bypasses IT stuff. So what are some of the techniques that they use? It's hard to see up here. I'm not going to go through everything, but you've heard of things like viruses and worms and Trojans. It's not important that you know all the details, but I want to maybe bring your attention to scareware. That's becoming more of a problem and becoming fairly successful. Scareware is, have you ever been working on your computer and then all of a sudden you get this little thing that pops up and it says, your computer now has viruses and you need to click here to get it solved. Well, all it is just an ad. It's benign. It's nothing at all, just like an ad for, something at the store would come up. But the problem is people see that, get a little scared, they click on it. Now you do have ransomware or some malware put on. So amongst actually trying to figure out all the bad things, you also have to discern that things that are there that look bad might not be bad, and if you try to rectify them, they actually become bad. So not only do you have to look out for the things we're going to talk about, but scareware is becoming more, it's always been out there, but it's becoming more successful because people are on high alert. They're aware that, oh yeah, if I have a virus, I got to do something. Just don't follow those things. Always get with your IT person. So it used to be that these geeky engineers would come up with stuff to compromise your network. But over the years, between the backups, between the firewalls, between the prevention systems and the detection systems, IT generally has a lot of that locked down. And so a lot of the force or energy of these criminals are not trying to bypass that because it's pretty solid. They still do. There's still a lot of it. But the vast majority of effort is to try to social engineer us because we are the weakest link. The equipment that's coming out of these manufacturers is top of the line. They use the same kind of techniques and processes that the attackers do. So the IT equipment is pretty solid generally, but it's us that causes the problem. So the social engineer is really the person that we have to spend more time kind of understanding. Let me just give you a quick example of deception. Why don't you read the question and come up with an answer? You don't have to say it, just think about it. And this is one of hundreds and hundreds, if not millions, of different kinds of deceptions. Most of you might have been thinking, well, is it A, C, or D? I'm sorry, A, B, or D, right? Because you've got martial arts and you've got the picture over there. But the problem is that's not the word martial. That's marital. And so, in other words, a little deception of misspelling, along with some kind of visual cue, makes you very quickly think that was martial arts. That's actually marital arts. And so the only thing dealing with marital arts is C. Now this might be kind of a fun or silly way to go about it, but when we see some of the next slides, it's very easy to see misspellings in the city of Neenah, misspellings in a person's name. And so this kind of deception is what social engineers take advantage of. And the other thing that social engineers do that should be a red flag for you, it should raise the hairs in the back of your neck come up a little bit. Whenever you've got a sense of urgency in something, now it could be very legitimate. There might be a lot of things that you're supposed to do right away. But that's also one of the things that social engineers do to try to make you do something quickly. They don't want you to think about it. They don't want you to put it away so that you can maybe come back to it later. They want you to click on things now. And so a sense of urgency should be a red flag for you. Just to show a little bit more of this, some of you may have seen this video, but let me just play a little social engineering example here.
Any code. They just
Start that
use
over.
a phone and invited Chris to hack me with his team, but they're going to hack me using social engineering, which is essentially hacking without any code. They just use a phone and an internet connection.
We help people with human security issues by testing vulnerabilities for like a network test, but it's for the people network. We test those vulnerabilities, see where the holes are, and then help people learn so they can patch them.
Can we try some of this? Can we try some?
Yeah.
See if it works?
Yeah, we probably could have our star visher here make some phone calls as
Let's do it.
Sure. You want to do a sample phishing call?
What's phishing?
Phishing is voice solicitation, and basically what you do is you use the phone to extract information or data points that can be used in a later attack.
Let's do it. Who are you going to call?
Maybe I'll call your cell phone provider
Okay.
and see if I can get them to give me your email address.
I bet they're good. I bet they have my back. But yeah, go for it.
I'm going to spoof from your number, so it's going to look like it's calling from you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay? My baby, I'm sorry. my husband's like, we're about to apply for a loan and we just had a baby and he's like, get this done by today. So I'm so sorry. I can't call you back. I'm trying to log into our account for usage information and I can't remember what email address we used to log the account. The baby's crying and can you help me? Awesome.
In just 30 seconds,
@gmail.com?
Jessica gets my personal email address.
Now, if I needed to add our older daughter on our account so she could call in and make changes, how would I need to go about doing that? You would have to send me a secure PIN through a text message? Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to receive a text message if I'm on the phone. Shh. Oh, I'm not on there either? So I thought when we got married, he added me to the account. Okay, my
Jessica uses my girlfriend's name and a fake social security number
5127.
to set up her own personal access to my account.
Wait, I'm sorry, so there's no password on my account right now? Can I set that up?
She even gets the support person to change my password.
Thank you so much for your help today.
So she just basically blocked me out of my own account.
I'll get her fed after this. All right, thank you.
Holy. So they just gave you access to my entire cell phone account.
You're gonna have to go on and change your password now because it's Jess, my name.
And all it took was a crying baby and a phone call.
Yes.
Invited Chris.
So, that's just one. That's kind of a humorous way. I don't think it's humorous for a lot of seniors who get scam calls, right? You've heard of seniors who, fall into prey to this. This is just one kind of deception. So some of the other ways that attackers, try to trick you with that deception are spoofing. You might have heard that she was saying that she was going to spoof that guy's phone number. In the same way that I can say that I'm you, I can put any name I want on my alias of my email, you can do things like that with your phone. So it'll look like it's coming from my phone number. Well, spoofing is meant to try to fool you. If you look closely, it's really not that, you can really see through a lot of that, but at first glance. And so some examples of that are, if you look on there, look where this is coming from. Anybody see a misspelling in Neenah up on top? Now, when you're looking for it, like we're setting it up here, it might be quick to see, but when you're not, when you're just kind of moving through your email pretty quickly, you might not notice things like that. Whether it's a city's name or a person's name or anything like that, that's spoofing. It's trying to deceive the identity of who they are. The other thing, too, in this particular email, for those of you that are on Neenah, because I know we have Neenah Menasha groups here, you'll notice that it comes from HR at your Neenah address. And Joe has said many times, and you get the message from IT, that no addresses are set up with department identities like that. So there is no such thing as HR at Neenah or IT at Neenah and whatnot. Joe, did you have any comments on that?
No, at this time, the only thing, we do have group emails coming into the city through our website, but there are only a handful of people in the city that go ahead and grab those emails. But otherwise, yes, it should be, in this example, it would be either Maggie, the new HR person, or Amy or Marcia's email account that would go ahead and be the from address. And also, the domain will no longer be City of Neenah WIUS. It will come through neenahwi.gov, which we switched over about a year ago. And that is the common failure with our phishing tests. Almost 90% of them are coming through like that and missed. Thanks, Todd.
So we're talking about spoofing. That's one way to kind of disguise the true identity. You know, the same thing, but you'll notice on this one, it's coming from the human resources, but look at the domain. It's hr@accountpolicies.com. That's another way where they don't even try to disguise it, or they might not even, you know, realize they're doing it. So when you have a domain that is totally different than what you're expecting, and not just here for the city of Neenah, but Amazon and other kinds of accounts have the same characteristics. So the next category is phishing. Spoofing is part of that phishing. Phishing is a deceptive, cunning way for a social engineer to get you to click on something, right? Whether it's download something or click on a link, that's where they bring in the malware and the other bad things. So here's an example from Neenah of that, where in this case, they set it up or they pretext it with something that might be urgent to you or important or interesting to you. Hey, we had a breach before, and to prevent further damage, we need everyone to change their passwords. There we go, immediately, right? That's that sense of urgency. And so if you don't read into it a whole lot, you'll click on the change password button. Another example here is the pretext in this case is, hey, you got vacation time coming. And we've got a new list of what it is, so click here to see how much vacation time you have. Or click here to see how much money's in your account. Or click here, you know, those kinds of things we have an interest in, right? We're all kind of, at least I am, kind of selfish for things. If I can get something, I want to know what it is. And so clicking on it, and again, that precursor, if it's too good to be true, that's probably the case. You know, here's one, again, what's important to us. Some organizations don't do employee reviews, in which case this might not be relevant. They go, oh, what's that? We never did one. But if you do employee reviews, like a lot of organizations do, it's now available. Well, who doesn't want to see what your review is? That's a pretty enticing, you know, personal thing. And so log in here to do it. So the only way that phishing can be caught and dealt with is through training. There's nothing that Joe can put on his network that will stop a human being from clicking on a link that they're not supposed to. And so the reason why you guys get phishing exercises and campaigns, it's the only recognized way to stop phishing. And 90% of all ransomware comes through phishing. So there's a real reason to have phishing, even though it might be inconvenient for you. There's a lot of things that in security that has to be done to users that are inconvenient. And one of the biggest problems is pushback. Some organizations don't really, no matter how much they get pushback on different security things, they understand how important it is and they just do it. And then eventually, you know, the user community becomes adjusted to it. But I'm just trying to emphasize that phishing is so absolutely mandatory because it covers, it's the only way to get us from being aware not to click on those things. Another kind of phishing is spear phishing. This is where you might have heard of CEO fraud, or there's a ton of things that kind of go along with attackers going after specific people that can give them specific benefits. If you can impersonate the CEO, you can get a lot of people to do stuff. or the city, manager or the mayor, because people want to please their boss for the most part. And all I'm just trying to show in this is that when you write messages, like one of those messages are, hey, do an urgent wire transfer, send $100,000 to this new account. And oh, by the way, I'm going to be gone for the rest of the afternoon, starting my vacation. Well, you're not going to have a chance to follow up. Your boss just told you to do something. $100,000 seems like a lot to you and I, but paying bills in a big organization, that's a regular kind of occurrence. So I can't tell you how many people do that. We see this, our organization responds to ransomware and this kind of stuff literally every day, and there are a lot of people that get caught doing this. And one of the things that I'll talk about later, that every time we do an investigation to figure out what went wrong, how this started, how the attackers got in, when we get to that, what we call the user zero, the person who clicked on that gal or that guy that clicked on that thing and made this bad thing happen, right? That's user zero. In almost all cases, at least 80% of the time, they say, you know what? As soon as I clicked on it, I knew I shouldn't have. There was something that they had in the back of their mind that it was there, but they didn't take any time. They just did a real fast, get it done. So one of the things that we'll finish up on is the idea that you really need, if you're going to do security, seriously, when you get these red flags, some kind of urgency, somebody wants you to click on a link, that at least a split second to think about it. Does that seem right? It doesn't have to be a long analysis, nothing big and fancy, but that split second could be the difference between, just a real fast reaction and then going, oops, I shouldn't have done that, and too late. So anyway, with CEO fraud, they're trying to target specific folks or spear phishing. Another group that's very common to attack is the finance folks. When attackers get in, they normally are in your environment for a long period of time, months and months and months. And they have automated ways as well as manual reconnaissance, and they can figure out who the people in your organization are, because all the traffic going back and forth, and they can figure out who the finance folks are and who the HR folks are. They're the ones that get targeted a lot because they have the purse strings or the ability to provide personal information. Another big thing that happens is not so much planting malware, which is a lot of what this is, it's just getting your credentials. And I said before that the person with the lowest access in an organization, they're still just as valuable as anybody else, because if an IT administrator like Joe works on their computer, maybe just to set it up to give it to them, or maybe if there was an issue down the road, there are hacking ways to get in and discover those credentials and use them to be escalated. So now when an attacker gets into me and I'm the lowest person on the totem pole, I have nothing on my laptop, nothing to my name, but because I'm in that network and I've got Joe's credentials that are hashed deep in the bowels of the software, I can bring it up and impersonate Joe, and now I can be on the network as an administrator. Now I got lots of privileges. So credential harvesting is really a big deal. And this is how they do it, right? You guys have to log into Office 365 to get into your mail and other things that are in your environment. You know how easy this is to simply make it look this way? I just took a screen capture and put it up here. I can easily make this very functional. You'll notice that the address at the top is ABC Company. Well, that's not the city of Neenah or the city of Menasha. Pay attention to where people are sending you to log in. So they might send a very benign message and ask you to just simply go in and log in. Here's the link. And instead of it being malware, it takes you to a website that looks like you're logging into Microsoft or someplace else valuable. And the next thing you know, you put in your credentials, and the attackers now have your credentials. That's very common for things like Amazon. Most people, do some business with Amazon, and I'm left and right, especially during Christmas season, I'm getting thousands, well, maybe not thousands, but certainly more than 100 messages from Amazon to verify things, to check things. And a lot of times I'm asked to verify something, and I get a link to it. And this is the kind of thing where if you click on it, you'll put in your credentials, and now people have access to your Amazon account and can clean it out. So Credential harvesting really relies on the ability to get people's passwords. So if you don't give it to the attacker through the methods I just showed, here's some ways in which, not ways, but the times it takes to actually crack a password. If you look at that here, this is what, in 2023, if you have an 8-character password, so think how many characters you have. If yours is 8, and you have all of the right things, numbers, upper and lower case, symbols, an attacker can crack that password in 5 minutes. We do that a lot. We get hashed passwords, so in other words, we don't know what the password is for accounts for organizations, and we say, hey, out of your 1,200 user accounts, we can crack 300 of them. So it's really easy to crack passwords. You'll notice that if I have 10 characters, it'll take 2 weeks. Any 10-character password can be cracked in 2 weeks if it's allowed to be processed on a computer. By the other side of the coin, if you look at like 14, if you have 14 characters, 1 million years it'll take. So the difference between 8 characters and 14 characters is huge in terms of making it so that an attacker can't do what's called a brute force attack and get your password. So credential harvesting is really big, whether it's logging into your phone, logging into your bank, logging into the city email address. Another thing that's becoming more popular is on our phones, don't we get little messages that pop up from things? Some of them are legitimate, but sometimes attackers do it to try to spoof you, to try to phish you. It's not uncommon for, there's a lot of people that have Wells Fargo bank accounts. So they spray it to everybody, and 1 out of, I don't know, maybe 20 people has a Wells Fargo account. And so it would seem logical that I should click into it, or an Apple iTunes, or a Google account. Those are the kind of things that most people have, or a lot of people have, and they try to phish you. So be careful of what you click on your phone. Phishing is that voice solicitation, which we saw the video of. And I mentioned briefly the idea of a jump drive. So the best practice, and I know there are policies that Joe has, you should never take a found jump drive in the parking lot or in the halls or someplace and plug it into the network or your computer to see whose it is. Because as I said, it's becoming more and more popular for local hackers to, or not hackers, but criminals, to sign up for this ransomware as a service. They download it onto one of these things, and all they got to do is drop it off somewhere, and they probably have a bunch of them that they drop off, and all they need is one person to say, what's on here? Or whose is this? I'm concerned. Put it in, and within seconds, the network is infected. So removable media is a big deal. And Joe, you have a specific policy on that, don't you?
We do at PD. We're all external USB drives come in. We've got a device not on the network or internet that they run through scans and stuff like that. If something would happen, it'd blow up that single PC. We are working on implementing that and identifying at the city. We can identify the USB devices that are being plugged in. We have to identify exactly if they're internal only, what they're being used for, and work through that process here also.
And one thing I'll just leave you with in this area is because we have so much prevalence with online meetings, especially since COVID started, whether it's Zoom or Teams, there's more and more attacks that go on, whether it's an attacker putting things into the chat. Everybody thinks that, I should click on this, and it's actually a link that does something malicious. So be careful of when you're in virtual meetings. So really just some of the things to keep in mind. There's a bunch of technology that the cities use to try to combat all this stuff. And one of them is multi-factor authentication. So really nothing more to do than to respond to it, but hopefully an appreciation that if you happen to get one of these bad actors that gets your password and tries to do something, multi-factor will stop them in their tracks most of the time. So I think everybody knows the inconvenience of multi-factor authentication, but it's incredibly effective in preventing folks from simply having your username and password to do something. Another thing that the cities do is some form of training, know before, this training, for example, and it's meant to educate us. I know it's hard to sit through a bunch of time on this kind of topic or watch the videos, but again, the only way to prevent the thing that happens the most is for you guys to be aware of it and don't click on things. And then there's other things that go on behind the scenes, different kinds of network protections. Here in Neenah, you guys deploy Microsoft Defender. And, there's really not a lot to know about it, but some people realize that it's slow. Sometimes when you open up a file, it's slow or whatever. A lot of times people don't know what's happening. They just know it's slow. And who can tolerate, slowness, right? We want to get rid of that slowness. Well, what it's doing is if you click on something, it runs it into a sandbox, a place that is not part of your network, and it opens it or follows that link, and it sees if it's got anything malicious behind it. And if so, it stops it in its tracks. If it finds it to be okay, it lets it go through. That's that delay that's inconvenient for you. But just imagine if you were that gal, that guy that clicked on that thing, and it stopped in its tracks because it was caught there. You would absolutely love that particular feature, even though it's slow. And that's one of the things that happens that you notice as an inconvenience, but it actually works for folks. You guys have a handout about some of those things that we talked about, what to look for in an email, in the header, and in the links and stuff. The last thing I really want to show you is that hacking thing. Now, this is a little technical. It's not, you don't need to worry in any way about what the guy is saying per se. The only thing I want you to walk away with is he got credentials from basically maybe the lowest person on the totem pole in an organization. He's going to use some hacking tools, and within less than a minute, he's going to gain access to the whole network, even though that person doesn't have access to the network.
You can see if I've compromised a user's account to bias, but I cannot log in as him. If I try to connect any servers as him, I'm unable to do so. I get stuck with a duo authentication prompt, and I don't have access to his phone to answer that prompt, so I cannot log in as Tobias. However, if I use Mimikatz,
Mimikatz is a hacking tool that you can buy.
I'll be able to get anything I need to on Tobias. I'm going to use a DC sync to get all of Tobias's information. And let's say I had access to his AES key. That's going to allow me to overpass the hash. I just specify the user I want, the domain, and his AES key. Now, I'm running as Michael, but I can access other computers like the computer I was trying to get into. And now I'm running as Tobias, and I have access to just about anything I want on that system. I can run any commands, bypassing all the duo barriers that have been put up to put MFA in front of that system.
So even though you use MFA, and it's highly recommended that you do, attackers can still get around that. You use, I think, Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator?
Correct.
They were using another version of multi-factor authentication called Duo, but the idea is he was confronted as a regular attacker with Duo when he tried to log in, but he got a way around it using tools. In literally minutes, if not even a minute, attackers can take that password and escalate privileges to have control over the whole network. And that's where the fun starts, is when they can get access to the network. One of the reasons why attackers don't propagate their attacks right away, and you've heard most attackers are in a system for months at a time, it's because they know that if they get my password, I'm a nobody as far as credentials. I don't really do a lot. So they do different things over a course of time to escalate. And when they hit the jackpot by getting administrator privileges, that's when they perpetrate those big ransomware attacks.
You can see if I...
All right, so we've talked about everything on here as far as passwords and other slides I'm going to show. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. But you know, the things that you've been told over the years is, you know, you should use different passwords for different accounts, so that if somebody does happen to get into your bank account, they can't get into your Amazon account and your other areas. I know that's inconvenience. That's kind of the purpose of password managers, where they encrypt passwords, and so you can have a long list of passwords because it's hard to remember them. The reason why we, in the past, have done it is because I can't memorize 30 different passwords, so I'll just use the same one for everything. You know, for computers, you know, the big thing here, like in the city, is don't install unauthorized software. Joe in the IT department goes through great lengths to vet and make sure that the software is safe that they put on the network. And what can bypass it really quickly is if you say, hey, I found this little utility that'll help me do my job better. That unvetted software, for example, could be, maybe it's not malicious by itself, but it might have been written pretty poorly and have vulnerabilities in it that attackers can take advantage of. So don't install software that you're not, that hasn't been approved by IT. You know, when you browse, obviously you should validate the places that you're going to. Don't find yourself, you know, 3 clicks down into something that just seems a little seedy or you know, that they constantly want you to click on things. At least have a sense of awareness with those. You know, if you're in a physical environment where you have confidential information, don't leave it on your desk. We do a lot of physical walkthroughs as we do assessments, and I can't tell you, just about in all cases, somebody ultimately has a little sticky on their monitor with their password on or underneath their keyboard. So be conscious of that confidential information. You know, public computers, if you go to the hotel or coffee shop and you use the computer, you should have a private VPN. I know that might sound complicated, but it's something that you can buy. NordVPN, for example, is one. But if nothing else, you should at least log out of whatever you're in. So if you logged into your account, at least log out, because somebody can come in and hijack that session if you leave that open. E-commerce, I think we've been pretty good with that as a user community over the years. You know, not clicking in shopping baskets that are unreputable. That's not that much of a problem anymore. We talked about social engineering and the kind of the do's and don'ts of that. So the last thing I'll leave you with is to remember that if something seems a little suspicious within, you know, because of a sense of urgency or you're not really sure who it is, just spend a minute and think about it. You don't want to be that person that says, you know what, the minute I clicked on it, I knew I shouldn't have. Those red flags that we talked about are important, and that little smiley or unsmiley face is just to give you permission to be suspicious. There's a lot of nice people out here that they feel guilty being suspicious. You need to have a healthy sense of suspicion in order to, you know, recognize these red flags. So that's pretty much it. I mean, if anybody does have any questions, I'll answer them. No, if I ask a question, I'll have to stay longer. So I get that. So then we're done. Joe, any last comments?
Just one quick comment. Oh,
Just a quick.
Oh, yes.
On a personal computer, they always ask you for the to save your password in the registry and stuff. Is that something that you would recommend that's safe or not?
You know, for example, the most common one is if you're using Chrome, it'll save it in the Google password manager. It's considered to be fairly decent. You know, there's a lot of security folks that would say it's not bad, but because Google is such a big organization, they're a huge target. So to get a different kind, you know, there's Bitwarden, there's a ton of other ones that do the exact same thing. But I use, you know, it's not terribly bad. The only thing you should be concerned about is what program is asking you to save it. Because sometimes your Google Authenticator will ask you to save it. If you're on a different browser, sometimes the malware is actually the one perpetuating to save it for you. So as long as it's a safe place,
Don't give me any confidence.
I want to make sure that you understand that there's risk with it, but there's also benefits to it. You got to weigh which one is best for you.
Basically, you need to close out of everything, that you can't leave tabs open or whatever you want to, or.
Yeah, if you've logged into your bank account,
Closing that every time?
yes, if you logged in your bank account and then just went someplace else. Now, on a personal device, it's not maybe so bad because who else is going to be on that device besides you? But if you're in a public space and somebody, the next person to come and use it, like in a library or in a hotel, then those sessions can be hijacked if you don't log out of them. Yes.
Logging out though is the key, not just exiting off of the tab. You have to actually log out.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, very good. Right, any other questions? All right.
Just had one comment on how quick this stuff can happen. In about a year ago, we had a credential harvesting attack where we had a compromised email who sent out an email to everybody in their inbox. And part of that was click on a PDF attachment, which didn't open, and told them to go ahead, just like Todd's screen there, of log into Microsoft to get at it. We had 11 employees go ahead and basically hand their credentials over. We did have one employee who gotta love the police department's logo. If you see something, say something. They called Matt and said, this doesn't seem right. And that was 10 minutes after the first person had given their credentials away. We had a handful of logins from New York, Chicago, San Francisco. It was amazing how fast that spread. In this case, because we were notified early, we shut down those accounts, changed the passwords, and then sat back and watched all the failed login attempts from those locations happen. So we escaped. It was a good learning process in the end, but it's amazing how fast this stuff travels and happens. If nothing else, thanks for coming, and if you have any questions as you get back to your desk or work area, give us a holler, and we'll take care of them. Thank you.